Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Civil Law. So, Sig Sauer, one of the most respected gun companies in the United States, a product that a lot of people really like, has been in a bit of hot water recently when it comes to some of their firearms, particularly its P320 model, in which they have been sued and now found liable for the second verdict this year for defects in the manufacture of the gun. That the gun is going off when it's not supposed to. The gun is malfunctioning due to the way that it has been designed or manufactured. Something about it is not right, according to the juries. So we're going to discuss this, and we're going to begin with how we can sue Sig Sauer, because a lot of you guys might think you can't sue a gun company, but that's not exactly true. You can for this kind of thing. And to prove that point, before we read the article, we turn our attention to the law that you guys are almost certainly thinking of if you thought of this. It is called the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. This was passed by the United States Congress back in 2005. So it's been the law for 20 years. And it is a law that prevents people from suing the gun manufacturer when the gun does what it's supposed to do, but not due to inherent product defects that cause the gun to malfunction. So just to prove that, we will read the operative part of the law very quickly. So we skip past the findings and we skip to the definition sections. So we talk about this idea of qualified immunity, the idea that the gun manufacturers have qualified immunity. So when do they have immunity? Well, the term qualified civil immunity or qualified civil liability action means a civil action or proceeding or an administrative proceeding brought by any person against a manufacturer or seller of a qualified product or a trade association for damages, punitive damages, injunctive or declaratory relief, abatement, restitution, fines, penalties, or other relief resulting from the criminal or unlawful misuse of a qualified product. And that there right away, you know that you have a problem, right? So this is neither criminal nor unlawful misuse. The person is the gun owner themselves and claiming, and the jury found that there is a product defect in their lawful, normal operation. He is not a criminal. He is not using unlawfully. He's just a gun owner trying to go about his life and apparently getting shot for his trouble. And then, of course, to clarify that point further, we skip to, it says, but shall not include, and then we can skip down to subsection 5, where it clarifies this point further. The immunity shall not conclude or shall not include an action for death, physical injury, or property damage resulting from or resulting directly from a defect in design or manufacture of the product when used as intended or in a reasonably foreseeable manner. So basically, if the gun is being used in a lawful way and being used as designed, as intended, or in a way that a reasonable person might use in a lawful way, then the gun manufacturer does not enjoy liability. So if the gun, if you pull the trigger and the gun blows up in your hand, that would be, for example, a problem. If something about the gun malfunctions and it causes the gun to fire when it's not supposed to, that would be the problem. Or if because of the gun's design, it makes it easier to pull the trigger than it otherwise should be, something like that, that would be the problem. So yes, we can sue the gun manufacturer for this, at least in principle. So I thought we'd clarify that because I thought you guys might be interested. Turning our attention back to the issue at hand, the Philadelphia jury in this case awarded $11 million on Wednesday to the man who had holstered his Sig Sauer pistol, and it went off while he was trying to go down the stairs, causing him serious leg injury. So according to him, it's in his holster, he's going down the stairs, and the gun goes off. That's bad. That shouldn't happen. And something about the gun allowed that to occur. That shouldn't happen. So that sounds like a product defect. The problem, the gun is improperly manufactured, at least according to him and the jury, at least in part, which we'll discuss. After the 3-week trial, the jury concluded that Sig Sauer was negligent for selling the defective gun and holster. There's something wrong with the way they're designed. The plaintiff's lawyer said that the P320 pistol is prone to going off unintentionally, a defect that has been alleged to have led to scores of injuries. So this has been a bit of a problem that Sig Sauer has been accused of recently in the last couple of years, where they have this issue. So not the first time anyone's hearing about this. And as you can see, they're getting into some hot water over it. More than 100 people have so far come forward to make similar allegations against the P320. Sig Sauer, for its part, insists the gun is safe, but, well, maybe not as safe as other firearms. Something here seems to be a bit amiss. According to the plaintiff's attorneys, we've been asking Sig for over 3 years to recall the gun, to fix it, and frankly use the same kind of safeties that other manufacturers are using that Sig Sauer is not. So something about maybe the way the gun is designed, maybe the way that your hand fits in it makes it easier for your finger to slip into the trigger guard. Maybe it makes it easier to unintentionally pull the trigger. Something about it, or some sort of internal mechanism is causing it to fail in a way that it shouldn't be failing. So there's something that they're saying is wrong with it. The person who was suing in this case was a man named George Abrams, who is a U.S. Army veteran and painting contractor in Philadelphia, who had said that he had holstered his P320, put it into the pocket of his pants, and zipped it up before going downstairs. The gun went off and the bullet tore through his right thigh, exiting above his knees, causing permanent injury. So that really shouldn't happen, right? According to him, right? He put it in the pocket of his pants, and somehow, some way, something got snagged or something, and the gun fired when it wasn't supposed to. So that's not ideal. At trial, Sig Sauer, of course, tried to shift blames to the man himself. The company said in a statement that posted on its website that the jurors had agreed that plaintiff's own negligence contributed to the accident, and defended the P320 among the most tested, most proven, and successful handguns in history. The plaintiff did not deny the gun fired because the trigger moved, but how the trigger moved might be more of the issue. So as Sig Sauer notes here, the jury agreed that the plaintiff was at least partially negligent. So you have this idea of contributory negligence versus comparative negligence. So in Virginia, Maryland, and DC, they have contributory negligence, which means that if you do anything that causes the fault, you can't sue. So if you are 1% responsible for the problem, you can't successfully sue. But most states, including the state that they're from, I suppose, have comparative negligence. And in most states, except for California, I think, which has pure comparative negligence, as long as you're not more than 51% responsible, you can recover for as much as you are not responsible. So to do easy math, if the jury assumed that you were 10% responsible and the company was 90% responsible, then they would figure out what the total amount of damages are and then multiply it by 0.9, because the company is only responsible for 90%. But that is the law in the majority of the US. As long as they're not more than 51%, as long as the plaintiff is not more than 51% responsible, the company still has to pay for as much as they're responsible for. So, that's just comparative negligence. In California, they have pure comparative negligence, or they at least used to, which means that at least hypothetically, even if the plaintiff were 99% responsible, the defendant would still be liable for 1%. But again, that is not the majority rule. The majority rule is comparative. So as long as it's not more than 51%, then the plaintiff or the defendant has to pay his part. So that's what they're saying. The jury was asked to assign responsibility. That would be part of the things they were asked. The jury was asked to assign fault, and they assigned at least some of the fault to the plaintiff. They say the plaintiff was at least partially responsible, but not dominantly responsible. So that is what they're talking about there. Sig Sauer says that they strongly disagree with the verdict. I bet they do. And will be appealing the decision on multiple grounds. I bet they will. Most notably, I imagine they'll be trying to squeeze as much as they can out of the language of the Protection of Lawful Commerce Act. They'll be trying to say that there's nothing wrong with the gun's design. They'll be trying to say this guy's an idiot and all the rest of it. But, a lot of those issues, of course, were fought in the first instance before the trial court, and appeals are for losers. So unless they can somehow show that they're, that their gun isn't inherently defective, where there seems to be some sort of problem there. So I don't have a lot of hope for them, but they do have some opportunities. So they certainly are entitled to appeal, and they can see how that works out for them. Earlier this year, a federal jury awarded $2.35 million to a Georgia man who was wounded when his holstered P320 went off. In that case, the person who represented the plaintiff has a raft of other plaintiffs' claims against Sig Sauer. The company has indicated plans to appeal that verdict as well from Georgia. So they're not, sitting this one down. Where there's a lot of money in place, so not particularly surprising. According to the lawyers for the plaintiffs, they say that we've said it before, and jurors are now speaking loudly and clearly with these verdicts. The gun is a danger to gun owners and anyone within the vicinity of the gun, which, again, as we've noted, there's 100 or maybe a couple hundred people who have said that this gun malfunctions more than it's supposed to. A true unintentional discharge. And this gun is going off on itself, perhaps because the trigger is getting snagged, but then again, perhaps it's been designed in such a way that makes it easier for the trigger to get snagged. Which, if so, then maybe that's a defect, right? If it's because, for example, this gun is in this guy's pocket and it gets snagged on some cloth and that's what pulled the trigger, then maybe the gun is designed in such a way that makes it easier for this gun to do that than its comparators. And maybe that's the product defect, which, fair enough. If that would be roughly equivalent, I suppose, if we're trying to compare it to something, that'd be roughly equivalent if, I don't know, the gas pedal or brake pedal in your car did function, but because of the way it was designed, it made it easier for your foot to slip off the pedal compared to a normal car. So because of the shape of the brake pedal or the shape of the gas pedal, there was something about it that caused your foot to make it harder to find the pedal in the first place or cause it to slip off the pedal more than a typical pedal, right? So there is a gas pedal, there is a brake pedal, but something about the design, its shape, its texture, whatever, causes people to press the gas or press the brake or not, as the case may be, more often than would be expected. And that would be the kind of defect that we're talking about, something by comparison here. So if we're trying to analogize it to something, that's what came to mind. The lawsuit, which was filed in 2022, recounted dozens of unintentional discharge incidents involving the P320, which lawyers have estimated there are about 500,000 in circulation. The suit asserts that the P320 is the most dangerous pistol for users sold in the United States market, which, to be fair to that claim, it's certainly the pistol that's gotten the most attention out of any sort of major manufacturer in recent memory. There are certainly other guns that are arguably worse designed and worse quality, and we can name any number of brands that come to mind, but Sig Sauer is a big boy company and people pay a premium for it. It's a fairly expensive pistol, $700, $800, depending on customization, could be even more than that. It tends to be a bit more expensive, tends to be, maybe 20%, 30% more expensive than a Glock. And also is more complicated internally, incidentally. But yeah, we expect more from Sig Sauer, and the fact this is happening is definitely deeply problematic. The military version of the pistol comes with an external safety to prevent unintended discharges, but the model sold to police and civilians does not. But then again, the Glock famously does not have an external safety. It's got 3 internal safeties, but then of course Glock's internal safeties actually work. So it has a drop safety. It has a drop safety and a plunger and the trigger has a trigger safety. So it has all kinds of safeties that the Sig perhaps does not. And perhaps that's, again, the nature of the negligence or the product defect. In 2019, the unintentional discharge of Philadelphia transit officers holstered P320 prompted the city transit agency to remove all 320s from service and replace them with Glock, which, have a track record which speaks for itself. They fire like there is a reason that Glock is something like 70% of the civilian market when it comes to handguns, at least for police. It's something like 70% of the market. There's a reason for that. They're reliable. They're reliable, and they tend to go bang when they're supposed to and not when they don't. So yeah. Sig Sauer has settled at least one federal class action involving the 320, involving pistols made before 2017, offering refunds or replacement guns. So Sig Sauer at least seeing partially the writing on the wall there. So Sig Sauer seems like it might have invented a gun that has some sort of design defect. What the nature of the defect is, I don't know exactly. I guess I could go into the cases and try to figure out exactly what the defect is. But it sounds like this gun is going off even if holstered when it's not supposed to. And if that's happening, something has gone incredibly, incredibly wrong. Sig Sauer, for its part, pointed out that even the plaintiff admits that 7 pounds of force was put on the trigger. Yes, I suppose it was. 7 pounds of pressure was put on the trigger, but that's not necessarily the end of the issue. It's like, how did that exactly occur is more the problem when it wasn't supposed to. So yeah, I've used Glock. I've never used Sig Sauer, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this particular Sig Sauer. It seems is not the best choice. Sig Sauer makes many guns, maybe not so much this one for you. So 7-pound trigger pull is heavy for a pistol. It's a bit heavier. The Glock is a 5-pound trigger pull. Yeah, so it's a little bit heavier than a Glock, but not absurdly so. So yeah, but 7 pounds is, yeah, it sounds about right. Glock 19 is the best pistol on the planet. Holla, that's what I own. Yeah, it is a fantastic pistol. Yeah, I have a Glock 19 and a Glock 26, and they work great. So I recommend them both. They work fantastic, and they've got 3 safeties. They've got the trigger safety, they've got a drop safety, and they've got the that ramp safety. So the Glock has a safety in the middle of the trigger. So it has this lever. This has lever. The trigger split, right? It's like a fork, right? And there's a middle part that's on a rocker. So you have to pull the middle part of the trigger. If you just pull the end of the trigger, edge of the trigger, the gun won't fire. So unless you pull that middle component back, it won't fire. Then the Glock itself is pre-cocked, but only partially, and you have to push it up a ramp effectively to fire it. So you have to pull it against resistance, and then it also has a plunger in the front of the firing pin that has to be moved by operation of the trigger. Unless you pull the trigger, that plunger has a spring on it to hold it down. So even if the gun somehow discharged, even though there's probably not enough force to cause the bullet to fire, because it's only like half cocked, in its standard position. So there's probably not enough pressure. But even if there was, without pulling the trigger, that plunger is going to stay in place and prevent the firing pin from contacting the primer. So yeah, the Glock has 3 internal safeties. It doesn't fail from being dropped. You'd be deeply hard pressed to make a Glock fire from dropping it. That would be really, really hard. Something would have to go catastrophically wrong in multiple different directions at the same time. That would be really difficult. If that happened, something's gone wrong. Yeah. Yeah. Being in New Hampshire, everyone's up there about SIG. Up until this moment, I had a reasonably positive opinion of SIG. And they make other pistols that I think probably are great. Just for this one in particular seems to have a problem for some reason that SIG either doesn't want to or can't acknowledge. So, but they make other ones that are fantastic. But, the Glock works great. The Glock works great. You like the grip on the shield? The M&P shield is a fine gun. I respect the M&P shield. It's a fine gun. Also, let's see. Springfield Arms makes a pretty good one. That is really attractive. And Ruger used to make the LCP. I don't think they make the LCP anymore, but maybe they make something else either way. Because the Ruger LCP was really cool. And the Springfield Arms was pretty cool. And the M&P shield is pretty cool. So if you were looking for like a short list of firearms for carry, those would be some good choices. The LCP Max, fair enough. The Springfield XD, I think the Springfield XD is cool. Yeah, I think the Springfield XD is cool. CZ, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion about CZ. And it's like anything else. It's like, yeah, I guess you could get an FN, but why? The only other one that you would really be looking at, in my opinion, would be if you wanted to do, you could do Walther. I owned a Walther for a while. I didn't really like it because the one I had like its magazine drop was on the trigger guard, and you had I didn't like that. So, but the Walther, one of the Walthers has some of the Walthers have a really good trigger. The biggest criticism of the Glock is the trigger, by far and away. Now you can partially solve that problem by making modifications to it, but the Walther arguably has the best trigger. At least it had the reputation for having the best trigger. And the only other one that you would really be looking at would be if you wanted a 45, you might be looking at who is it that makes the 45 that everyone likes? Kimber, yeah, Kimber. The Kimber 45. If you like the 45s, the Kimber might be your choice. Yeah, it was a lever built into the side of the trigger guard. I hated it. I sold it. I hated it. I sold it. But yeah. Yeah, it is a Euro style mag release. I hated it though. I didn't like it. So yeah, I didn't like the mag release being on the trigger guard. I thought I didn't like it. I'm so used to the American style. It's like it didn't work for me. But you know, that was me. Mark 23 USP for modern 45. USP for 45 I respect. Yeah, that's a fair choice. H&K, Heckler and Koch. Wilson Combat. Yeah, at that point though, you're just like showing off, right? If at that point you're just like, how much money can I spend on this customized gun? We were contemplating like, guns for normal people out of the box, not, multiple $1,000 race guns. So if you're in the multiple $1,000 race gun territory, you're in a different discussion than this discussion with Uncivil Law. So you can take your Wilson Combat right out of this discussion. that isn't in the discussion for today. PPQ, there you go. Yeah, the PPQ. The PPQ has a fantastic trigger. The PPQ has a really nice trigger. It's been a long time since I shot a PPQ, but I remember thinking it had like the nicest trigger of any gun I ever fired. It was worth it. I contemplated getting it just for that reason. At least at the time, they didn't have like a compact PPQ, so I don't know if they ever came out with one. But the PPQ for the trigger would be like really, really good. PPQ steel frame, respect. I do have a revolver. I have a Taurus revolver. I have a Taurus 357. I never fire it, but I do own it. I have a Caltech PF9. I have that. I have which at the time at least had the distinction of being the lightest, one of the lightest firearms there are. The single stack, I think it's 7 or 8+1 in the Caltech PF9. It's what Zimmerman used against Trayvon Martin was the PF9. I owned it before he did, or I owned it before the case did. But yeah, it had the distinction being one. The Caltech also makes some just weird shit. They have that side by side shotgun with they have the swinging magazine tubes. So it's 7+7+1. Who makes a shotgun this way? Caltech does, I guess. Caltech makes some weird shit. So I have a Caltech PF9. I have a Taurus 357 revolver. I have a Ruger 22, a Glock 26, and a Glock 19 is what I own at the moment. Yeah, the KSG, I think that's right. Yeah. 7+7+1. Who makes a shotgun this way? Who makes a shotgun this way? What else can we talk about? I like gun talk. X-Tar EP9, never heard of that one. X-Tar. Well, I guess we've run out of gun talk for the moment. An ICBM with a MIRV is nothing more than the buckshot of missiles. Sure. A MIRV is a buckshot. Sure. Yeah. Are Alfred's pleas illegal? No. The Supreme Court said Alfred pleas were legal. They said it in a case called Alfred. That's how you know they're legal. Yeah. Are Alfred pleas illegal? No. The reason they're called Alfred pleas is because it's in a case called Alfred. No. Remington bankruptcy? That was sad. Okay, how about this? I'm going to propose. Here's a discussion. I'm going to propose the best firearm ever made was the Henry repeating rifle. Before Remington stole the show and tried to pretend it was the coolest. But I'm going to propose the best gun ever made was the 1860 Henry. Who's with me? Is it just me? What caliber was it? Oh, I don't know. I'd have to look that up. Probably something like 4070 or something. Mauser is the most copied. Ma Deuce. The Ma Deuce is cool. The Ma Deuce is an interesting gun. To be sure. 50 caliber BMG machine gun. It's legendary. It's very effective. Uh, it works. Yeah, the Modus is certainly an interesting choice. You can put it on a helicopter. You can use it on the ground. When you absolutely positively need to make everything disappear, except no substitutes, sure, the Modus is an interesting choice to be sure. It's a little impractical for concealed carry, though. So it does have that problem. It's a little impractical for concealed carry. But I suppose if you have a wish and a dream, maybe. Also, the ammo is kind of expensive, so it's not exactly cheap to fire. Oh, Lord. The Sharps rifle, the Sharps, the legendary Sharp, as they say. Yeah, the Sharps rifle certainly very influential. You're not going to conceal your Henry either. Maybe if it's a short barrel Henry, and I chop off the buttstock or something. Mm. Why would you conceal a rifle? For the same reason you might conceal anything else. I mean, even where open carry is legal, there's lots of reasons to prefer concealed. So why would you conceal? Because you can. For bragging points, for the lulz, just in case a deer happens to be walking by. I don't know. We were so busy asking whether or not we could, we didn't stop to ask whether or not you should. Yeah. When you conceal carry, you can choose not to get involved. Yeah, I mean, I always preferred it personally. I prefer concealed carry. I just don't really like. It's like why I don't, just personal preference, but no one needs to know that I have a firearm. And if you find out, it's because something's gone horribly wrong. Well, I've enjoyed gun talk with you guys. Now, we do have to like politely like harangue Ian at some point because Ian said he'd have me up and we could do some 3-gun together. And I think he's going to make me wait until the spring or something. So I'm not gonna get an opportunity to go for a while. But I would love to go do some 3-gun. I've never done 3-gun. I've done a little bit of pistol shooting with USPSA and IDPA. I even shot at Quantico a couple times, which was cool. Because because you get to use the range at the for the Marine Corps range. You get to use their high impact range as a civilian, which is pretty cool. There are a lot of like military bases that let you do that. That allow civilians to use their things. I think it's like part of some sort of administrative code wherever. But I did appreciate driving up to the front gate of Quantico and the Marines being like, "How are you doing?" "I'm doing great." "Do you have anything to declare?" "Yes, I do." You know, they're very try not to get shot. Brandon Herrera for ATF director, that would be hilarious. I support Brandon Herrera for ATF director. That would be hilarious. If he needs a deputy director, I'm available. I'm more than happy to help. Oh, I'm sure he's got some other choices. All right, I guess I'm going to sign off for now. This has been a fun discussion, though. I've enjoyed gun talk with Kurt. Maybe I'll become a big 3-gunner and start shooting again. It's been a while since I've been out to the range, though. I'm not going to lie. It's been a while since I've been out, so I could definitely use some help at this point. In any event, I've been Uncivil Law. Remember, until next time, to keep it uncivil out there, and have a good one. Peace and goodbye.